What's up, guys? Today we are going to the Bellagio to play 2-5 cash. Let's get it. COVID is basically over and Vegas is back and popping. The casinos are packed and the whole family has made it out. Alright guys, what do you think? I think a casino has to be top 10 worst places to bring a kid. And particularly a baby. Who does that? Cute dog. In this first hand, we have a $10 under the gun straddle, and we raise to $30 under the gun 1 with pocket 7s. The button and straddle make the call. The flop is glorious as we see the jack of clubs, 10 of diamonds, and you guessed it, the 7 of spades. We bet small, $30, in hopes of inducing a raise. This is exactly what happens as the button folds and the straddle raises to 105. We just call. The turn is the ace of diamonds. The straddle continues and bets $200 into about $300. No reason to raise here, so we just make the call. The river is the 10 of clubs, and we now have a boat. We now beat the straight possibilities, king, queen, and 9-8. Our opponent checks, and we jam all in for about $460. All in. Our opponent tanks for a while, but eventually makes the call. We are good as we show our boat, and our opponent will later say that it was a ballsy all-in with such a small full house. In this hand, the under the gun player raises to $10. This is unusually small as it's a min raise for 2-5. So 3-betting would certainly be fine, but we just call on the button with jack 9 of hearts. The big blind also calls. The flop is 9-8-4 rainbow. The original raiser bets $15. We call and the big blind check raises to $60. The early position player folds and we make the call. We have a decent top pair and backdoor straight, so we come along. If we had backdoor hearts, I would like our call far more. The turn is the king of spades. The big blind continues and bets 120 into 165. If you take a close look, you can see our opponent is breathing super heavily. I probably gave too much credit for this, meaning that he is bluffing. Let me know in the comments what you think this typically means when playing live. In reality, we should just be folding here. Our opponent has raised into multiple opponents out of position and has continued to bet large on the turn. Very well could have just folded flop, but certainly should just be folding this turn. With all of this said, we make the call. The river is the queen of clubs, and our opponent checks. We are happy to check back here. We see 9-8 offsuit for 2 pair. This just goes to show you can't always trust your reads. In this next hand, we have pocket kings and are facing a $20 early position raise. We 3-bet from the hijack to $65. The button, who has a huge stack of 2,000, cold calls and the original raiser calls. The flop comes jack of spades, 6 of clubs, deuce of hearts. The early position opponent checks and we bet $100. This is a fairly dry board, so we do not necessarily have to go this big, but I find the 1 black chip gets called quite often as it looks so small and is easy to call. This is a live secret of mine, so please do not tell anyone. The button makes a call and the early position folds. The turn is the 6 of spades. This changes nothing as the caller should never have 6x here. We have slightly less than a pot-sized bet left here, and it seems like a natural jam. We are mainly hoping our opponent has some jack X here like ace jack. Cold calling 3 bets is generally bad, so if our opponent connected with this board, he is likely not folding. We go all in for $340 into $400. Our opponent tanks and eventually folds pocket queens face up. We just got owned. In this next hand, we open 10-9 of hearts under the gun for $20. This may be a bit loose being first to act, but if we feel comfortable at the table, we are definitely fine with it. Under the gun 1 calls, and we see the flop come 9 of spades, 5 of clubs, 3 of spades. Our opponent could be flatting pre with small pairs, but this is a pretty wet board that I think we want to protect against with our weak top pair. For this reason, we bet $35. Our opponent makes a call. The turn is the jack of spades. I honestly do not know why we continue betting here. We must have thought a 9 was good against this particular opponent. Anyways, we do bet $60 and our opponent jams all in for about $135 more.
Hit the jack?
Sometimes you just have to go with your live reads, and in this case, that's what we did. We make the call, and we see a river. We get no help as the ace of clubs comes on the river.
I have a 9.
Surely we are no good with this action, right? Wrong. We show our hand and win. Maybe our reads aren't so bad after all. In this hand, there are a couple of limps in early position. We are in the low jack with ace queen of diamonds, and we raise to $30. We get called by the hijack. The flop comes ace of clubs, jack of diamonds, 7 of diamonds. This flop is so good, it is almost too good as we have so much of the board covered. Nonetheless, we want to build a pot, so we do bet $15, basically begging for a raise. Our opponent calls. The turn is a 4 of diamonds. We decide to check, and unfortunately, our opponent checks back. The river is a 6 of spades. We bet $55, targeting Jack X mostly, and who knows what else. Our opponent actually raises to 110.
Is that a raise?
We jam for 300 more, and our opponent calls.
I'm on.
All in? Call.
We show the nuts and get max value versus what I would have to assume was a weaker flush. In the last hand of the night, there's an early position raise for $20. We call on the hijack with pocket 4s. The big blind also calls. The flop is 8 of clubs, 4 of clubs, deuce of diamonds. We flop another set, and as Joey Ingram would say, we are poker hard. The original raiser bets $55, which is pretty large. This is a wet board, and we would not love it if the big blind came along, so we raise to 160.
160.
The big blind folds, and the early position player calls. The turn is the 9 of spades. Our opponent checks, and we bet 165, or about 40% pot, pretty similar to what we just bet. This is fine, but I actually like a smaller size, as we will be jamming for about 1/3 on river with this size. To our surprise, our opponent has already read our mind and jams all in anyways for about $305 more. We snap call. The river is the 8 of diamonds, so we boat up, and although we do not have to show first, we go ahead and just show anyways.
I'll show, I don't care.
Our opponent's cards fly across the muck, and we end the night. What is up, guys? We are done playing our session. We are in for 800, cashing out for 3,098. So about a $2,300 profit.
Do I still win?
You did. That's a good call. Good call.
Thank you.
I had to talk you out of it, and you did. All right, Daddy, taking a picture.